Well, it's around that time right here on KAZ Radio where we have one of my most hottest shows every month. None other than Family Court Secrets with Maryann, Dybiec, and Attorney Cherry. How are you guys doing today?
Hi,
Pretty
Larry.
well, Larry. It's nice to see you again. I missed you for a
Man, I miss you guys too, as always.
And
Huh?
we're,
Go ahead,
thanks.
Maryann.
We're so glad to be back. Today, our show, we're going to talk about custody and visitation issues. And before we do that, I just want to give you our disclaimer. Anything on our show does not constitute an attorney-client relationship. This show is for your information only. If you want to seek legal advice, it is our recommendation that you do call an attorney. We do attorney referrals. You can call our office or call the Bar Association for any referrals. So today we have with us Beth, who's actually my assistant director, who's in charge of therapeutic visitation. And we have attorney Patricia Winfield, who's an expert, and you do mostly custody, but you do other stuff, correct?
You mean in all areas of law you're talking
Yes,
about?
you do general, but you do a lot of custody.
I'm in general, I'm in general practice, but I do a variety of things, about a handful of things. That includes some divorce, juvenile work.
Right, so we're here to pick your brain about some custody secrets you might know.
I do bankruptcy too.
That's what I thought, yeah. So,
Don't go bankrupt.
well, a lot of divorce
Sometimes
people,
get a lot.
right, a lot of divorces end up with bankruptcy. So we were gonna start with Beth. Beth and I work closely together on supervised visitation. She is our therapeutic supervisor. And can we start with why would a family be put into a therapeutic supervised visitation as opposed to a common visitation?
Of course, Maryann. There is a difference between supervised visitation and therapeutic supervised visitation. It's a higher level of supervision. My qualifications are clinically certified forensic counseling, so that requires a master's degree. Supervised visitation that's therapeutic should be held with a person of those credentials, or licensed independent social worker. A counselor could CC person with those credentials. Sometimes there is things you just have to intervene and interject and correct, and that's not typical of a supervised visitation. Normally, you don't have to intervene many times, but during a therapeutic one, you can intervene up to 10 times per visit, and then give them the tools needed to do it better next time. The last supervised visitation I did that was therapeutic, there were so many dynamics going on in the room, so you have to be very acutely aware of them, and they might not be spoken dynamics, they might be nonverbal or gestures, or someone walking out of the room, someone putting their head down on the table out of frustration, or so does that kind of give you a
Can you give
good
us
answer?
an example of maybe a case you have that is in therapeutic visitation and some of the reasons for that?
Of course. I have one currently going on that is, I have to stay at all times with the father and the children. But if one of the children, because that's part of the supervision, if one of the children has to go to the bathroom or needs to just leave the room for a moment, that's okay. I don't have to follow them. I have to stay with the parent and the other child. So
Sorry to interrupt, but are there angry episodes in
that's
these
what I was
visits?
getting at. Yes, she's a little bit around the teenage years, and she stormed out of the room. So the knee-jerk reaction is to go running after her. Are you okay? Are you okay? But you see how you can't do that because you're leaving behind the father and the other child. So you would be leaving someone unsupervised. Can't ever do that. We did go check after a couple minutes. The girl came with me, leaving dad alone for a few minutes by himself. So he was okay with that. And we just went, the girl still was not ready to come back into the room. She said she wanted to be left alone. Her little sister started to console her, and I said, let's go back in, because she said, Sissy said she wants to be left alone. And I want it to be a safe environment for them. If something happened in the room that's just too that they couldn't handle. Maybe they just had been saturated with 2 hours with dad is too much, or he said something even though it wasn't wrong, it just ruffled her feathers a bit, or she just got mad, and then, you know, she's allowed to take a little time out from it. She doesn't have to stay in the room and be that uncomfortable. So the other child, I told her at the end of it, if you ever need to leave the room, you know, you can too. She just looked at me like, well, why would I do that? But she feels very safe and comfortable in there, but I wanted to let her know this isn't just specific to your sister. Like, if there's ever anything you need to also, go ahead.
Basically, the therapeutic visits are helping the children involved in these visits because you're giving them coping skills when you see that something is not in sync.
That's
right?
very, very good explanation, yes.
Right.
Yes, I think.
Would it
go
also
ahead, Eric.
be helping the parent too?
Mm-hmm.
Give us an example of the
course.
types of therapy you provide for parents to help them connect with their children.
Okay. Switching cases, I had a very, very difficult case where the children refused to face their father. Like, they literally were backs turned in the chair, all three of them, and he was just beside himself with devastation and would cry and cry and cry every week. And it was heartbreaking, it really was. The court finally stepped in and said, mandated that those children have to at least face him. They didn't have to talk to him, but they had to at least face him. So
it's an interesting court order.
I know.
I know, that's what I said. I heard this story before. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know how I was going to get these three people to turn around. Because you can't put your hands on them, you can't turn them,
right.
And they wouldn't listen to me. Turn around,
Were
face
they-
your
were the
father.
children-
Your father's speaking to you, answer him, you know.
Can we take a step back a minute and talk about why supervision is ordered in the first place for visitation generally?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
then,
Yeah, Patty,
But I want
touched on
to,
this
I
one.
want to just say with the dad though, coping skills. Yeah, he would give them a Christmas card. They'd throw it across the room.
Wow.
I mean, he needed counseling so bad, and I gave it to him every single. I think he had visits twice a week, but yeah, the hurt was unmeasurable
You know,
for
good
this
for
man.
him because he kept
Yeah,
showing
he
up.
kept coming.
Right.
He kept coming. Yes.
Break the
So-
kids down.
So okay, how did he end up in supervised
well,
visitation?
just
Or
generally.
in
Let's
general?
take it away from cases
All right.
specifically.
How in general?
Why do you do supervised visitation in the first place? What are some of the justifications that motivate a court to order them? And then why the next step? Why do you have to go from supervised to therapeutic?
Oh, that's good. Sometimes the order is written from the get-go, therapeutic visitations, and that might be if there's sexual abuse.
Excuse me for interjecting, but is sexual abuse an automatic therapeutic visitation?
I think it is, yeah.
Because I have a case going on right now that I had to quit because of those allegations. I had no idea. Patty, you know about this?
Yeah.
Therapeutic? Always?
No.
Well, I gave an opinion. Yeah, I think it is. It should be an automatic. It should be an automatic.
Oh, it's just an opinion?
Yeah, I think. I don't know that it is. So that would be one thing, you know, where the
How about physical abuse?
children. Yes, we sometimes after physical abuse, especially prolonged physical abuse, the children can develop PTSD, post-traumatic stress.
Right.
And that's a complicated and tricky thing because you never know when it's going to surface. You know, could be during a visit. The visit could be fine. The girl storming out of the room was kind of tied in with that. Somebody said something and it just triggered a memory, and it was too intense for her, and she had to remove herself. So that's why I was okay with it. So
Does it matter if
physical
the
abuse.
physical abuse happens between a parent, presumably the supervised parent, and the child versus the two parents, and maybe the children witness it?
I wouldn't say that would be an automatic. They could probably start out in regular visitation, but with the cases sometimes that we move to supervised visitation, it takes a couple of visits and realize, you know what, this one really should be in supervised visitation.
Oh, right,
sometimes
right.
you know after the first one, we need to move it. It's a little bit of an increase in cost,
Sure.
just a small increase, but we have that right. Maybe Maryann can help me. Does the court need to adjust anything, or we can just say you need
Our last case, remember,
you need
we
therapeutic.
took it on and bumped it ourselves just because we knew it needed a therapeutic, and we informed the court and they didn't complain.
Right,
So
right, okay.
I'm gonna say, yeah, if they come for a regular supervised and I do it, and I find I can't handle the emotional concerns of the children, I will definitely put it in therapeutic visitation.
Right.
And again, it does depend. Some cases we might need to consult with the attorneys, and sometimes not.
And this one I'm going to ask to Patricia, because I was just going to relate my experience in general, especially when I'm representing the women, is that I would say 90% of them would just love to have supervised visitation. And I think it's because they don't trust the other party,
That's
or
a
they
whole
want to
nother
outload
stream
their
of-
emotional, anger at the other party. So I guess what I'm trying to drive at is what, from the court's perspective, justifies supervised visitation or therapeutic supervised visitation. And I appreciate the case law experience, but what can a parent that's in the court system expect when this fight's going to happen constantly almost? What is the court going to do? Are they going to order it? Are they not going to order it? And what are the circumstances where they're going to order it? How about your experience?
Doing private custody, mostly, actually exclusively, I don't come across these really severe, I don't come across the severe cases where people need the therapeutic. For that matter, I've never used it, and only recently heard about it.
It's only been big recently. Yeah.
I just had a thought. The supervised visitations sometimes are ordered by forensic court downtown. We get a lot of them through that, and then, like you said, they're a little bit more severe.
I like the forensic studies, but anyway, when somebody comes to me and says, I want supervised visitation for him, like it's typically the woman in that situation. I explore a little bit and often find that up until a week ago, before she found out that he was sleeping with her best friend, he was with the kids all day long.
Well,
We laugh, but it's true.
he needs supervised
He was
visitation,
always,
right?
he watched the kids
He can't be
day in and day out, or whenever she went to work or whatever, and all, many hours unsupervised. And he may have a drinking problem, or he may smoke pot, but I will point that out that seems a little, what's the,
Retaliatory?
yeah, right, I guess. So I try to let them see that themselves, that, okay, if he was just watching the kid, why does it now have to be supervised? So that I try to avoid those types of things, because I don't think supervised visitation is ever a long-term solution. And I like, and a lot of times it inflames the other party, and it could even make the child more fearful and more anxious. And I think ultimately we should all be looking at what's the best situation for this child, and not putting a child in fear of the other parent is going to long-term be better for the child.
So how many people, average, will come in and ask you for a supervised visitation? How many actually get ordered, and for how long?
Well, I don't really get that many people that insist for very long anyway, after I tell them I don't really think it's necessary. And I've never seen it. I can't remember the last one I had where there was supervised visitation. Well, maybe at 10 years or so. And that one worked itself out in a reasonably short period. Actually, that's how I met you, come to think of it.
Really, that was a long time ago.
You were supervising the visitation for
Wow,
our whatever father's rights.
Yeah.
group.
I've been doing this a long time.
So maybe it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, about that.
Well,
Yeah.
then you must be getting your clients from a different sector of the population, because I have a few
know, they're
cases
not
Right,
so
right.
that
bad,
there's supervised visitation. And one that now I just took her on has a therapeutic supervised visitation going on. And it's see, at least for me, it's common that the request is made. I would say that perhaps 10-15% of the cases that I have is supervised visitation ordered by the court. At least in my experience, it's heavy drug problem, and not just drinking a little bit, smoking a little bit of pot like you would suggest. I'm talking about using drugs to the point where you present a danger to your children because you are incapable of providing supervision, providing care for those children. Had a case recently where at one point mother caught a child endangerment charge because she was nodded out middle of the afternoon on the couch. 3-year-old kids got outside,
Oh, no.
2 of them, twins,
Yeah.
and got
Oh.
next door, went into the garage, grabbed the spray paint cans, and engaged in some art project.
Wow.
Come on already.
Yeah.
That's
And
so
so,
crazy.
yeah, so the
That's what
the
they call it now.
neighbor,
Yeah.
well, was
You
like
mean
calling the
graffiti.
police
Yeah,
saying,
graffiti.
hey, there's
Yeah.
some 3-year-olds vandalizing my
Come
garage.
We're laughing, but it's really
under
not
those
funny.
sorts of, I mean, it's hilarious, but it's not. Under those sorts of circumstances, that is when I think the court is motivated to, make sure that somebody's there just to keep mom or the parent from, from engaging in activity which makes her less capable of being a
Right.
parent.
Now, she would be denied at the door if she was under the influence. Like, we would never allow the visit to occur. If you're
Right.
saying, like, if
Yeah.
the court ordered her supervised visitation, they would order her treatment first, but so if she got
And I-
supervised visitation and someone thought, the visit would be canceled.
And I have to say, many times, not all times, but many times when you have such a drug addict to that extent, they really don't show up. They're scheduled.
They
but
don't.
Yeah,
won't
I
show
was
up.
gonna say, it kind of messes up the buzz, I would think.
Well, in
Yeah,
all
they
seriousness,
typically
I
don't
had a
show.
client who didn't show up, and
Mm.
there's a really good reason why he didn't show up.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the
He's
outcome
dead,
of
yeah.
drug abuse.
Yeah, there was some counseling that it never even the case never got opened. Like, he never came for his intake.
Wow.
But the wife, ex-wife, came. I think that sometimes there's babies like that visit. Like, the baby was 9 months old or something, and she came with her new husband, and he wanted to adopt the baby, and that's why because the drug addict father hadn't been in the picture at all, but because he got notification that somebody wants to adopt your child because you've been AWOL, then suddenly he appeared in this child's life, and it just was. She was horribly upset that he didn't.
I mean, it's sometimes you get the parent that'll be just getting into treatment, right? And so, yes, there's a history, and the other parent has got plenty of baggage from that history, where they've been picking up the slack for the absentee, addicted parent. But now, when you start doing drug tests in connection to a custody case, and when you start engaging in, investigatory behavior, there's nothing current, or maybe they can show a history of improvement, going through an IOP program or whatever, and is there still a need for supervision?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
We had a gentleman who was so loving to his 2 children. They were really young, under 4, but he struggled. He's like, I am so freshly sober that I need help. I think he was living in a halfway house or treatment plan, and they let him go to see the kids, and then he would go back. But he was very open and talking about his struggles, so he didn't hold back at all. But when he interacted with his children, it was all perfect. But you would see how you wouldn't want to leave him alone with them because he's not even 30 days. He had such a short time sober.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so Patricia, how many times have you filed a motion or oral motion for drug testing that has backfired on your client?
Ooh, good one.
I warn my client ahead of time.
Do they drug test both parties if one party asks for a drug evaluation?
It's generally mutual. So I tell my clients that have a concern about that they better make sure that they also will be clean. And I tell them that ahead of time, so.
And do they drug test, are they in court and the judge says do they have to leave right after that hearing to take the drug test, or do they give them 2 weeks to get clean?
No, I usually have 24 hours or something like that, or it can be agreed upon. I did want to answer your question. Apparently I attract a better type of, no, I'm just joking.
Oh my God.
I think you're
No,
right.
no.
I agree.
Comes out with the truth.
No, really what it is I'm older and wiser, and I refer them to you when they look too complicated. I don't mean wiser, I mean, I know better, I don't want to be involved, it's too much, it is very stressful.
It is. Family law is pretty emotional.
I've had that conversation that you're suggesting, warning your client that the court's going to order both of you. And, if I make this motion, you're going to be on the hook too. And a hair follicle test is something that goes back a few months, 3-4 months. So if there's anything in the system at all, it's going to show up on the test.
So
And I didn't find out until after I made the oral motion and the order was made by the court, then out in the hallway, hey, counselor. I'm like,
Oh my God.
and of course,
Smart.
the other party turned up clean and my client dirty.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and so I had to overcome that, and I did ultimately. But that was a little bit of it delayed the outcome of the case that my client wanted. Let's put it that way, because I had to demonstrate to the court that this was an isolated incident.
Wow.
So yes, so
Can we go back to, we were talking about before we actually went live, you guys were going for 5 minutes on third-party access to visitations.
Grandmas.
So I'm sure there's a lot of questions about that. I know we had a lot of questions. So Patricia, can you explain to us what a third-party visitation is?
I'll try to do as well as Eric did earlier when he was explaining it to Beth. Yeah. Third party, or what they call companionship time, is really any person, an old babysitter, your neighbor, your grandmother. They're all in the same boat, is my understanding, and they can ask for visitation or companionship time. Excuse me, and the court can and most likely won't give them time. There's a lot of hoops that they would have to, I don't know, you explained it better, but they have to establish that it's in the best interest of the child, and it can't interfere with the parents' time, and I just find it, a lot of courts aren't keen on granting it at all.
Really?
Maybe grandparents, if there was a history of a relationship and it was damaging to the child to not see that grandparent. But I've seen it flat out denied. So grandparents out there, be nice to your in-law, your former, your child. Actually, I see a lot of that, where they don't even get along with their own child and can't visit during that child's time, which is the normal way, as we were discussing. So be nice to the mother of the child, because you just never know when you might have a fallout with your own kid, and you still want to visit.
I know, I just can't even imagine. I don't have grandchildren yet. But I mean,
No
I'm
knocking.
horrified at the fact that they could, I try to stay away from I'm horrified at the fact that they could flip the tables and, cut you off. It's just a horrifying.
You don't even know if you like those grandkids yet.
Well, that's
You haven't
true,
met
but
them.
I'm sure they're cute.
Maybe you won't care.
With some visitation centers have a standard where the non-custodial parent has to complete 2 visits before they can even consider asking for a companion to come in. You know what I mean? Because
That's a good rule.
the
That's a good base
visitation is
rule.
ordered so that
Right.
the non-custodial parent can rekindle and reunite and
Right.
get to know. Sometimes they never even met the child. Get to know them. So if that doesn't happen, in my opinion, there's no companion visit that's going to be approved. So the standard in some of the texts say like 2 visits. Now you could extend that if you had concerns. Some of the clients start asking right from the get-go. They're signing the intake. They're completing their intake form, and they look at, can I bring my, girlfriend or my stepson or my mom? No. Like, why are you already thinking about that when you haven't even seen your child yet? Or after on the first visit, second visit, already asking. I think it raises a little red flag for me. That case where the gentleman was allowed to bring his girlfriend, the agency made him wait, I think, I want to say 12 visits or something. It was at least, it was above the 2 and 3.
Okay.
And he was not happy, but he did it. He completed his visit, and then we allowed the girlfriend to come. And
Okay,
she-
because I think, you know,
yeah.
when we were talking about prior to the show going on, is there's a legal cause of action in family court in Ohio for a non-parent. And that, like Patricia said, it could be the babysitter, could be grandma, could be an aunt, could be whatever, your former neighbor, to file for essentially special visitation time, you know, over and above what parents could get in a normal custody dispute. Now, I would say 95% of the time, it's estranged grandma. Or something like that,
I
who
agree.
files for a companionship time, but the law does not limit you. And I think, you know, you're correct that courts are a little reticent to invade the parent's time to give a third party companionship time. But even if it is ordered, and you have to establish that it's in the best interest of the children to have this time, and also that, you know, there's a long-standing relationship between whoever the person's filing it and the child, so that you're not creating something new with it. But even if they do order it, it's maybe a day or two a month, and 2 is kind of like, wow, you know, that's
Yeah.
a lot of time,
Yeah.
right? So, you know, your rights are very, very limited if you're not the parent. I think the only time that it is appropriate for say a grandparent to file for custody without having to show the unfitness piece is, and we'll get into that, is when the child's dead
Right.
or incarcerated for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah, that's what
thinking you were gonna say.
Right.
Because otherwise you have, if mom has every other weekend and dad has every other weekend, and one of the grandparents wants to have a weekend, whose weekend are they gonna? Where's this 5th weekend coming from?
Right.
So it would have to be kind of in place of their child's visitation. It seems to me.
But, you know, I was kind of alluding to that case before with the child endangering in the spray painting. In that particular case, grandma just wanted to step in as mom. And just, you know, if mom wasn't available for a visit because she was engaged in her other activities, do you see where we're going here? And she thought her rights were
Well,
same as mom's.
I'm not hearing you say she filed for custody of the kids.
No, she
She
didn't.
didn't.
She didn't. She just kind of stepped in
She
and
was
just
being like
asserted.
a good Samaritan.
Is it
Right.
No.
She didn't have any legal rights.
No, she
Yeah,
didn't have any.
well, we were talking about that earlier, too, about the parents, third parties that want to become the custodial parent, and that isn't a situation where you just show you're a better parent than the real parent, because, like I was saying, somebody could have been a better parent than I was, or I could be better than somebody else. That doesn't give me a right to come in and say, hey, I'm better than you, I'll raise your kids. There's a very high standard for something like that, and that parent would have to be even more than unfit, it seems to me, but I mean,
I think
pretty
that's
gross.
the standard.
Do you
Yeah,
guys
unfit,
get
but a
calls relating to that?
Pardon?
Do you guys, both you lawyers, do you get calls?
I do,
relating
but
to
I cut
stuff
them
like
off.
I have a client
I
right
send 'em to
now who'll be
I send 'em to
defending
Eric.
against that showing.
Do you
Right.
really? Are you serious?
I've got one right
Yeah,
now where I have the father. There is an allegation, and I think there's some validity to the allegation, but my investigation is still pretty early, so I'm not passing judgment yet. Between that, there was abuse from father to mother,
Oh, okay.
but mother's got there is evidence to suggest that it was only between the parents. Okay, they've long since split. All right, father was incarcerated for a while. Now he's no longer incarcerated, and he had filed an action for custody. Mother has her own basket of issues and is not really able to be the custodial parent either. So, ready for this? Father's sister has filed for custody as against father.
Oh, yeah, that
yeah.
happens sometimes too.
And so she would have to show the unfitness really for both parents, as is over my client, or mother for that matter. But I think that one's going to be a little bit of easier hope. But what a difficult
Yeah.
case.
I think I can help you. Why don't
Okay.
you have, so if the father doesn't want the sister to have custody, order himself some, or have you order some supervised visitations to show, for a little bit of time, 3 months, 6 months, and then show the courts or whatever that he is good.
Well, I mean, if we can get to that point, we have a full day emergency custody hearing scheduled. That's the next thing, and everybody's going after it.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I've seen those situations where I think they're in cahoots, the father and the other family member on his side. They're just have
Never thought
so
about
much.
that. I guess that could be a possibility.
What do you mean? What do you mean? The
Yeah.
father and
The
and
father
his
says
sister?
Yeah.
he knows
Like, I can't
he's not
do it.
gonna
Right, so he
pass
gets somebody
muster,
to.
so
Yeah.
he's not going to fight his parents getting custody.
Oh,
I just had one of
sister.
those out in Lake
So how
County.
did it turn out?
Actually the other
Well,
way.
in this, well,
Okay.
or sister or whatever, but in this case, it was the father's parents ended up getting, they filed for custody, and then we worked out a shared parenting arrangement that worked for everybody.
Well, I
including my
hope we
client.
get to that point in this case
Yeah.
because it's not how you kind of described it. It is mother and father's sister.
Oh, they're,
who are in
and they're,
cahoots.
okay.
Yeah, mother recognizes, I think, at some level that she's not capable. She's going to shovel the kids off over there and let her manage them because as long as he doesn't have them, that's fine. You know, and
Yeah,
that's
that brings
The
up another
courts will
point
have
of
to
of
hash it out.
hatred.
Yeah, the courts will
There-
have
What?
to hash it out.
That brings up the point of the hatred back and forth. Like
That wasn't us.
Maryann, you have a referral.
and maybe somebody's calling into the
I
show.
Oh,
knew
this
we
is
needed
live.
some more supervised visitation clients.
Yeah, this is a good opportunity. If you'd like to call in and ask
Yeah.
our panel some questions, the number is 216-298-1554 to talk to Patricia or Beth or Maryann or myself
Eric.
even. Ask us a question. We'd love to
we
hear
love
it.
talking about custody,
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
visitation.
Well, I don't know, I think Maryann was about to say something, but if you're not, I have a comment
I lost
about.
my train of thought.
Okay.
Nice
Uh,
to-
I just wanted, as far as, let's see, okay, well, I'll do this one first. I remember a case, it was actually my secretary for paralegal for years. Her husband had wanted to get visitation of a child that was born prior to their marriage. And there was a guardian involved, and he recommended that the child visit with my guy, and so the kid was probably 10, around there, and the mother was saying that my child is scared to death of him, and she throws a tantrum, and the guardian ad litem went into the house and witnessed this child throwing this horrible tantrum. I don't want to go, screaming, clinging to mom as she got pried away to force that visit with dad. And she got in the car and she said, "So where are we going?" Like it was
Stinker.
all a show for mom.
Wow.
Stinker.
I've done a lot of guardian ad litem training, and some moms they're not intentionally saying bad things about dad within earshot, on the phone in the next room,
but
but
if they do, it really affects the child.
it really does
we
affect
were
the
just
child.
talking about this. 2 different cases like that.
So, the one thing that does affect the child, and they really should understand that when the kids hear bad things about the other parent, that can really destroy them emotionally, and maybe they'll end up doing drugs and having other
Right.
bad effects from that. But that made me think of something else. But I have something I tell people. Try this. Say something nice about that. Are we allowed to swear? No, that
yeah,
woman,
that
that other, person. So I told a dad just the other day in a custody battle I have in Cuyahoga. Say something nice when your daughter comes to visit. Just say something nice about mom. I don't care if it's, boy, your mom really knew how to cook that one dish. That was great. Or just, she's a hard worker, or something like that. That will trickle back to mom and start a new, like, instead of a downward spiral, an upward spiral of a good feeling. The kid beams because dad doesn't hate my mom.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Dad thinks nice things about my
Right.
mother.
Yeah,
That-
people
that
don't
kinda-
understand how much
yeah.
this affects the child.
But anyway, where I was going was sometimes with a younger child, the mother she won't outright say nasty things to the kid. She'll cling on to the kid for 2 or 3 more seconds than she should, and the kid starts gets its
Right.
own
Feeling
anxiety.
right,
It's like,
nervous.
something's really
Right,
wrong
right.
here. And don't forget, you can call me anytime. Here, you got my number, right? You know,
I've
It's
seen
gonna
that
be
with
okay.
even
Yeah,
the
it's gonna be okay, yeah.
Just go with it.
all
It'll
that
be okay.
stuff, and
Yes, yes.
it messes up the kid. You
Right.
can say, you'll have a great time with your dad, yeah, but if you're acting very nervous, it's gonna.
Right, I just
come-
had a case a little while ago. That's a very memorable case. The only case that I went home after 20 years and cried. But the mom pulled many things, but that was one of the things she pulled. And this child was only 2 years old, maybe 2.5.
It may not have been intentional, though, just,
Well, again,
Like
she had a lot
pulling.
of issues.
okay.
And that was one
It
of
could
them.
have been.
That was one of them. And you saw the
Passive
child's
aggressive,
face.
yeah.
You know, we were all there. We were passing the child, you know, and you could see the child's face, confusion, anger. The child did not want to leave mom because mom was like, oh, this is not a good situation. So then the child becomes scared as soon as we left the building, just like you said. Where are we going? No display of
Can we get
emotion.
ice cream?
Where are
Right.
the toys?
Hi, Daddy. Love you. Miss you. But while
Yeah.
the mom is holding this child, the child was, I want to use the word terrorized, which might be too strong of a word.
Well,
but
sometimes it's loyalty. The child wants to be loyal to that parent because
Right.
actually I've heard that they want to be loyal to the parent they think might abandon them someday.
Correct.
But
Right.
in general, they're just saying, I know mom will be upset or hurt, and she's the one here for me every morning and, you know, get me off
Right.
to school.
But
And
the mentally healthiest thing for a child is for the parent, for them not to hear the parents bad mouthing each other. Because again, what me and Beth do, we see this all the time. You know, I get calls from angry parents. We hate the dad so bad. We want anything. We'll do anything to quit the supervised visitation. They'll look for any tiny little thing to 86 the visitations. And I know the children are hearing this, and it's so not good for
yeah,
them.
you know that they're saying it.
Right. The children are happy when they're with me. As soon as they leave, then everything hits the fan. You know, but they're very happy when they're in our supervised visitation. But the anger between the parents really does affect the children.
I had a guy come in with his mother. He was middle-aged, and he still had his mother come in, and they brought the child, tweener, maybe like 11-year-old, and he was sitting in the waiting area, and the door was shut, and the father was ranting about how the mother didn't give about the kid, and I told him to be quiet.
no.
And at some point, I got kind of angry, and I said that what he's doing is wrong, and this is going to damage his child, and if he keeps it up and blah, blah, blah. I kind of read him the riot act, and then I got up because I was visibly shaken, and I went and got a coffee next door and came back, and the mother, I guess the guy had stepped out to go to the restroom or something, and his mother said, "Thank you so much
Wow.
for telling my son that. We know it's wrong, and he needed somebody to hear it, or hear it from somebody else."
Now I have two questions.
It always leads to something.
Okay. The first one was, when you were talking about the scenario where the child is kind of modeling behavior for one of the parents in order to show loyalty, what have you, and as soon as they're outside of the parents' earshot or vision, then they go back to kind of an emotionless, happy situation. Do you ever run into this situation where you get a client who wants so badly to do the in-camera interview, and to try to, I want the child to tell the judge.
In-camera interview
Yeah, what are
is
you talking about?
when a child gets to speak with the judge
In the
judge's
chambers,
chamber.
yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So
I've-
the judge.
Something no judge wants to do.
Well, and you have a right to it under Ohio laws. You file for it, and the court has to do it.
And most of them won't do it until the end of all
Really?
everything, because they secretly don't want. There's the secret, court secret.
What the heck?
They
They don't want it to happen. Yeah.
But they want the one parent wants the child to go back there and tell the judge how awful the other parent is, or
Yeah.
whatever, how scared they are, and how they want to live with mom, what have you. And this is an interesting thought that the parent themselves may be so deluded by their own child's behavior, thinking that there's a fear or a danger or whatever, and when they get outside of the parent's vision, back in chambers, no parents there, they're just going to be normal, and it's going to totally backfire.
Yeah.
Have you had that experience?
Well, I've had not an in-camera. I don't think I've ever had one go that far, but I've had children tell all. Kids don't hold back. does your, I don't know how they ask the questions, but they get them to say, yeah, Daddy says bad things about Mommy all the time.
Wow.
And they'll give specific examples. And so these parents who think they can brainwash their child into saying bad things about the other parent, it just doesn't work. That backfires all the time.
Yeah.
And not to mention backfiring in life in general, but it's going to hurt their case for custody if that's.
Right.
You know.
One of the elements of the best interest of the child analysis, which is always considered by the courts before awarding custody to one party or the other, is which parent, if given a custody award, is more likely to facilitate parenting time for the other parent. Okay.
Yeah, they say that. But
Yeah.
Oh, you don't think that factor is considered?
I love the fact that that's written in there, so you can threaten the other side
Oh,
with
that's
that.
what you asked the child? The judge?
No,
asked?
the
Oh.
law says
Okay.
that's one of the factors besides who's going to be a better parent, more stable, and all these other things. So now, if I represent a gentleman who's, whatever. Well, we know it's a guy most of the time who's not getting the visitation, and the other party isn't represented yet. I can write a nice letter and say, understand that under the law, the court can award custody to some. They take into consideration whether you're willing to abide by a court order, a visitation or parenting time for that parent. So I like it. Do I think it's the end all? Absolutely not. I don't think it will ever be the pivotal factor.
Well,
You'd have to be almost on an equal footing for that to happen.
when you're acting as a guardian and you hear the types of comments about one parent making about the other, either whether they're programming the child or whether you're hearing it within earshot during your interview, does that inform your recommendation as guardian when you analyze the factors for the best interests of the analysis and then tell the court what you think?
It would. I haven't been a guardian in 20-something years. I did a few of them way back in the beginning, and I've kept up with all the training. But I prefer what I do.
3 minutes left. Wow, that
Wow,
that
it went,
flew
yeah.
by.
I didn't even get to say all the good things I want.
Well,
No,
you have
can I?
a couple minutes, go.
Okay, I'll throw in. I think I get a lot of people that come in and say, well, she said that first. And I tell them, you have to look in the mirror and know that whatever you say can stand alone. And if somebody says, well, you said that you don't have to defend it by going, yeah, but. You should always do the right thing. If her grandmother died and everybody's going to the funeral on your visitation day, you let them go. I don't care if she didn't let you have her time when your cousin was in for family reunion or whatever. You just do what's right, and it'll come back to your benefit and the child's benefit in the long run.
Right, amen.
Well, on a good note then, that man that I told you cried because his children wouldn't even face him, let alone look at him or talk to him, there was a miracle that happened, and the case was transferred to juvenile court, and he got custody of all 3 of those kids.
Oh, wow. I had something a long time ago like
Because
that.
he did the right thing each and every time. Those 3 teenagers hurled insults at him after insult after insult after insult. They hurt him so bad, and he never spoke bad about their mom.
So actually,
He
can I
spoke
ask her
loving
questions?
about her.
So
We got
how
30
often do
seconds
you
left.
see that it's the other parent doing an alienation type thing?
That was my first parental alienation case, and I've had 2 others that weren't anywhere near as severe, but it's not common,
Oh,
but it happens.
The court secret was treat the guardian ad litem like you would the judge,
That's right. That was what she wanted to say.
because the guardian ad litem is
Very important to your
ultimately going
case,
to
right.
decide your case.
Even though we get tons of complaints about guardian ad litems constantly breaking their appointments, they are crucial to your case.
And you can't
So-
change. You can't say she didn't agree with me. I want a new one. It's not going to happen.
Although there is times the guardian can split and become a lawyer and a guardian, but that's a little complicated for today's
Yes.
show, maybe another show.
Another show.
We're wrapping
wrap
up
it
for
up.
today. We want to thank Beth. We want to thank Patricia, and as always, Eric Cherry. You need any attorney referrals, call our office or the Bar Association. We're going to end it for today. Remember to
Don't call me.
do the right thing. Don't say bad things about the other parent.
Hey,
Thanks so much.
Amen.
thank you. Don't call me if you have a custody battle. Call Eric Cherry.
Yeah, really fine. Yeah, blue, yes.
The secret is I did radio a long time ago, so I kind of.
Oh, we didn't do an hour show, that's why, right?
I know, right?
You know?